You've probably heard that cracking your knuckles can lead to arthritis or other joint issues, right? So what's the deal? Is that just a myth, or is there some truth to it? Let's dive into this. First off, what exactly are knuckles? We call those joints the carpometacarpal CMC joints, which sounds fancy, but it just refers to the spots where your fingers meet your palms. Each finger has one except for the thumb. Our knuckles are made up of two types of bones: the long bones in our fingers and the shorter bones in our wrists. Where they come together, you'll find these little discs of connective tissue called articular discs. These discs are like the cushions in your car seats, helping to absorb shock and distribute pressure when you move your fingers. And just like any other joint, they can bend and extend, which is often when you hear that satisfying pop. So, what causes that popping sound when you crack your knuckles? It's not what you might think. Many believe it's due to a vacuum forming in the joint, but that's not quite right. The sound actually comes from a sudden change in pressure within the joint. When you stretch or bend your knuckles, the pressure shifts a bit, and when you release that pressure, it pops back to normal. The sound you hear is basically gas bubbles in the synovial fluid of your joints condensing. It's kind of like when you pop the cork on a bottle of champagne. The pressure is released and the gas bubbles become visible. So, the next time you crack your knuckles, remember, it's not a vacuum doing the trick. Now, for those who are convinced that cracking your knuckles creates a vacuum, let's think this through. If a vacuum really formed, air would rush in to fill that space, right? That would mean you wouldn't be able to crack your knuckles anymore. Plus, if a vacuum was genuinely forming, you'd likely experience a lot more than just a popping sound. We're talking about intense pain, numbness, and tingling, which would make you drop whatever you're holding and probably scream a little. But here's the kicker. Folks who crack their knuckles regularly don't seem to have these side effects at all. So, yeah, no vacuum is forming. Now, let's tackle the big question. Does cracking your knuckles cause arthritis? The short answer is no. There's no solid evidence to back up that claim. In fact, some studies even suggest that cracking your knuckles might help prevent arthritis. How wild is that? One study found that people who cracked their knuckles were actually less likely to develop osteoarthritis. Researchers discovered that these knuckle crackers had thicker articular discs, which makes sense since we tend to crack the knuckles we use the most. They also ruled out genetics as a factor, concluding that cracking your knuckles might strengthen the ligaments around the joint, which could protect them from future injuries and conditions like arthritis. But wait, there's more. There's another theory floating around that cracking your knuckles helps to remove excess water from the joint. You know how your hands can feel a bit puffy after typing away at your computer for hours? That's your body building up excess fluid in the joints. Cracking your knuckles could be your body's way of releasing that extra fluid and relieving pressure. It's like giving your fingers a little spa treatment. Now, let's address those warnings about weakening your joints or damaging your ligaments. Some people claim that cracking your knuckles makes them feel weaker or looser. But guess what? Research doesn't support that idea. In fact, it might be the opposite. A study conducted by doctors at the University of Iowa found that frequent knuckle crackers were less likely to develop arthritis. Plus, these knuckle cracking folks showed stronger grip strength. This could be because cracking your knuckles increases blood flow to the muscles in your hands. When you crack those joints, you're stretching and bending your fingers, which boosts the oxygen and nutrients reaching your muscles and tendons. More oxygen and nutrients could mean stronger bones and better performance overall. You might even find that some athletes crack their knuckles before exercising or competing. It's like a little warm-up for their hands, activating the muscles and giving them that extra boost. Sure, you might not see a huge increase in muscle mass, but it could definitely improve flexibility and range of motion. Who doesn't want that? Now, let's talk about those articles claiming that knuckle cracking is a sign of arthritis. A study done at the University of Alabama at Birmingham looked into whether habitual knuckle crackers were more likely to have visible osteoarthritis on X-rays compared to non-habitual crackers. They examined X-rays of 297 participants, almost half of whom were habitual knuckle crackers. The results: habitual knuckle crackers had significantly lower odds of having osteoarthritis compared to those who didn't crack their knuckles. They concluded that cracking your knuckles isn't linked to an increased risk of arthritis and might even protect against it. How cool is that? Now, what about those who say cracking your knuckles feels addictive? You know that feeling when you hear a knuckle crack and you just have to do the same with your other hand? It's almost like you want both hands to sound the same. It turns out researchers found that people who frequently crack their knuckles are more likely to admit they do it for the satisfaction of hearing that pop. Some experts even think that satisfying sound might trigger the same receptors in your brain that addictive substances do. But don't worry. Doctors at the University of Alberta say this isn't a real addiction. At worst, it's just a habit. So, is there a right or wrong way to crack your knuckles? Good news. It doesn't really matter how you position your hand or which finger you start with, as long as you get that satisfying pop. However, you should definitely avoid hyperextending your knuckles. Stretching your joints beyond their normal range can lead to damage in the ligaments and tendons of your hands. So while there are plenty of ways to crack your knuckles, you should never force them. If you can't crack them easily, just take a break and come back to it later. Forcing your joints can lead to sprains or strains, especially if you've recently injured your hand. So, what's the bottom line? The truth is, science hasn't given us a definitive answer on whether you should crack your knuckles or not. Many doctors say, if it feels good and doesn't cause any pain or problems, then go for it. There's no solid scientific evidence proving that knuckle cracking creates a vacuum or causes arthritis. But hey, everyone's different. Listen to your body. If cracking your knuckles causes pain or discomfort, it might be best to stop. But if it feels good and helps with your performance or range of motion, then crack away. Just remember, don't force it. If you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends for more fun health topics. Until next time, take care of yourself because you absolutely deserve it.